There was a birthday in our house last week, and one of our favorite family traditions is to have family over either on the day of the birthday or at least somewhere around the date of the birthday. And we let the birthday person pick out whatever that meal is, and then we cook it up. Often my mother-in-law and mom and sister-in-law will contribute to the meal, which I appreciate so much, because it just makes it so that the task feels lighter and I can be more involved in the gathering and talking with people. And then we also let the birthday person kind of choose an outing for the day. And so we went to the zoo most recently. It was really fun. It was very cold. It was like 31 degrees and very windy. There were very few people there. So we felt like we kind of had it to ourselves. Next, I'm working on making a recipe I'd never made before. I found it online from the website Love and Lemons. I can put it in the description box in case you're interested in trying it. So it's like a broccoli quiche, and then they called for Gruyere. I didn't have Gruyere. I used Kerrygold Dubliner cheese instead, and then I also had some already cooked bacon and some spicy sausage in the fridge that I wanted to use up. So I chopped those up and added them into. The recipe doesn't call for that, but I figure you can't go wrong when you're adding, delicious pork products. I will say that I added way too much broccoli, probably twice as much as was necessary, and I don't think that it benefited the recipe. So next time, if I ever made this again, I would half the amount of broccoli that I used. I just eyeballed it, and I think I just really overestimated the amount that I needed. I think the recipe called for less, and I was just feeling enthusiastic about adding a lot of vegetables. So this was not a resounding success. I think it could have been more successful had there been less broccoli. There's probably like half of this still left in the fridge, so that tells me that I did something not quite right. But anyways, I thought it was delicious. I thought it was, tasty, and I think it's, for me, I kind of prefer a sweeter breakfast, and then I feel like this is good more for lunch for me, like to heat up and have some extra protein and vegetables all ready to go just in one dish, and I can just cut some and reheat it and go for it. So I'm sauteing the broccoli and the onions in a little bit of vegetable oil, adding salt to help it kind of cook down and get softer more quickly. And after I did this, I whisked together some eggs and milk, and I believe it was thyme and some salt and pepper, and then combined the broccoli and the onion and the egg mixture and the cheese and the bacon and the sausage all together in a greased pie plate and baked it for, I'm not sure how long it was. I'll have to consult the recipe. The first time I took it out, it wasn't quite done, and I was hungry, so I sliced into it anyways, but the egg was not set, so I reluctantly returned it to the oven for another 10 minutes. And when I took it out the second time, it was truly done, and it was pretty tasty. I felt like it was a good way to use up leftovers. My family is not huge into quiche in general, so this is no shade on this particular recipe. And it's a crustless quiche, and I feel like the crust is sometimes one of the most appealing aspects of quiche. So I left that out. And so would I make this again? Yes, but probably for people who enjoy broccoli more than my children do. It would be good to take somewhere, I think. It's great because it's naturally gluten-free, because it's a quiche-less, a crustless quiche. So it's a good thing to keep in mind if you're going somewhere and they're gluten-free eaters, or if you yourself are a gluten-free eater. I'm curious, what are some of your favorite ways to use up leftovers? I feel like sometimes if you can take the disparate ingredients that are in the fridge and combine them and add cheese and bake them, that can kind of give them new life and make them appealing again. So, how do you like to use them up? Oh, here we are. It's the day of the birthday outing. This is called Stingray Bay, and you get to go and touch the stingrays. I had always kind of thought that they were dangerous, but I don't I don't know. These appear to be tame. Some of them were quite lively, and they would come and kind of like almost seemed like they were trying to get out of the water and greet you. So now I'm slicing up some cucumbers because I was just kind of in the mood to make hummus. I got an immersion blender from my aunt for Christmas, and I'd only made mayonnaise to date, and I thought, I would like to try making hummus in the immersion blender. Somehow it seems, with the immersion blender, not in it, it seems less daunting somehow than lugging out the food processor. So it came with this kind of cup, and then I just added chickpeas, a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of tahini, and then I added salt. I added the zest of 3 lemons, and I also added the juice of 3 lemons, and then I just worked the immersion blender up and down a little bit and got it to a pretty smooth consistency. I think it could have been smoother. I probably could have added more olive oil, but I started with this and I thought it was good. I really thought that the juice of 3 lemons might be too much, but it really wasn't at all. I thought it was just right. It kind of added like a bright, zesty flavor. Oh, I also added 1 small garlic clove. I know a lot of people add a lot more garlic, but I'm not a huge fan of raw garlic, and so I just decided to make it to my own taste. So I strained out the seeds of the lemons, and I really enjoyed this. I thought it was good with the cucumber. I have some carrots that I need to cut up, but I would like to peel the carrots before I slice them to serve with this hummus, and I cannot find our peeler anywhere, so I do have to order a new one or buy one. Right now, our toddler is exploring all the kitchen drawers and relocating certain items according to her discretion, and she's not always keeping me abreast of the new locations. So I anticipate I will probably find the peeler within the next couple weeks in some unlikely spot, but until then I do feel like I need one, because carrots, if you're serving them raw, they just don't look as appetizing with the skin on. I don't think it hurts you to eat the skin, but anyways, it's the beginning of March, and we had kind of a warm morning on this particular day, so I ran to the hardware store with my 9-year-old and 2-year-old, and we got some of this Miracle Grow moisture control potting soil, and I'm adding the soil, about 4 cups, to large empty strawberry clamshells. Like, we buy a lot of strawberries at Costco, and so I just, after we're done eating the strawberries, I'll rinse out the clamshells, let them dry, and then I nest them all together under the sink, and then when I get enough of them, I'll take them out to the shed, which you can see in our backyard in the left corner. But I used this method last year in combination with using milk jugs, and I found that using the strawberry clamshells was just so much easier. You don't get as much height, so if you're growing something that's going to get really tall really quickly, probably the milk jug is still your best bet. But I found that I liked not having to poke drainage holes in the bottom of every single container. I like that these are already have ventilation. They have ventilation holes throughout the top. And I like that they're easy to open and close, so I don't have to mess with duct tape or, box cutters trying to cut around their circumference like I do with the milk jug. So I filled them with the potting soil, and it is important to use potting soil and not just seed starting mix or topsoil or raised bed soil. And it was already pretty wet, so then I kind of just followed the package instructions of how deep to sow the seeds. So I think I started with celosia. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but they almost look like feathery spears. And a friend had given me some a couple years ago in a variety of colors, and I saw this particular color at a local nursery. It's almost like a salmon pink color, and I thought it was just really beautiful. I'm trying to do kind of like pastel shades. So I planted those seeds according to the package instructions, and now I'm trying another flower that I have not grown before, and it's the straw flower. And I had looked at these last year on Johnny's Seeds, which is a website with very beautiful photography. It's very enticing. But by the time I decided to buy them, they had sold out. And one of the things that I had found interesting about the straw flower, and what initially attracted me to the idea of a straw flower, is that they're supposed to dry well and be pretty for cut flower arrangements. So I love having fresh flowers in the house through the spring and the summer. And then once fall comes, I feel like I don't really have much in the way of nature indoors. So I thought maybe I could try to grow these and see how they do. So I'm labeling the containers using oil pastels. I used this last year too, and I thought it worked well. I had read like using a grease pencil worked for labeling things, but permanent markers don't work because the sun fades them. But I didn't have a grease pencil, and I did have oil pastels, so I thought, hey, I'll try oil pastels, and that worked. And then I'm gonna keep those seeds in the strawberry containers set in my children's sleds, like snow sleds, because I've read that it's a good idea to water seeds from the bottom up. So I'll just like pour a little bit of water into the bottom of the sleds, and then it should come up into the soil through the holes in the bottom of the strawberry container. And that's supposed to encourage the roots to grow downward and not just stay on the surface. So in the end, in theory, you're supposed to have, a hardier plant. So next, I'm again trying to use up some things that we have in the fridge and the freezer. So I had gotten out a frozen quart-sized bag of chicken stock earlier in the week, and I only used a little bit of it. So I had some chicken stock in the fridge that was thawed that I wanted to use. And then I also found, while I was rummaging around in our freezer, I found cooked turkey from Thanksgiving. At our homeschool co-op, we had a Thanksgiving potluck, and a friend and I, we were in charge of roasting a turkey, and it was very delicious, but there was a lot left over. So we kind of shredded it up and divided it amongst ourselves. And I found my portion recently, and I figured, now that it's March, I feel like I should probably, think about using this up. So I got some celery and carrot out of the fridge, washed it, and tried to dice it up pretty small. And I'm cooking it in my Instapot on the saute function with a tablespoon or two of butter. And then, of course, I'm going to add some salt and going to stir it up, and some pepper, of course. And then once it cooks down a bit, I'm going to add a little bit of the King Arthur gluten-free bread flour, which won't work for you if you have a wheat allergy, because it actually is wheat. But somehow they took the gluten out. I don't know. I don't know if I should trust it or not, but it works well in recipes. So I added about 2 or 3 tablespoons of that flour and mixed it in with what was already in the skillet, or the pot, I guess. And then now I'm just stirring in slowly that stock that I mentioned earlier. And then once I get that all incorporated, I had leftovers. I had some leftover cooked rice in the fridge, so I added maybe a cup and a half or two of the rice, and then the turkey, and then I stirred it all together. And I forgot to show what it looked like at the end, but it became a very thick and comforting soup, which was nice because a cold front blew in, and it started to rain, and the wind was blowing really hard, and it got kind of bitter cold. So the day started sunny and warm, and then it got cold. So by the time dinner came, I was glad that I had made a soup, and we really enjoyed it. My youngest and I got bowls of it, and we took it out on the front porch with our coats, and we sat and watched the rain and ate some soup and watched cars drive by. I always feel like that time right around 5 o'clock where my husband isn't quite done with work, but nap time has ended and dinner time is approaching. That's kind of a good time to go outside, because that's when toddlers and babies and little kids seem to need the fresh air the most. Oh, I forgot to mention, I added some dried tarragon to flavor this. Tarragon is not an herb that I have always had on hand, but I recently learned that it goes well with poultry, so I've been trying it out, and I did think it was delicious with this kind of dish. And then I also added in some whole milk to give it a little bit more body and a little bit more richness. And then I served this with some baguette that was liberally smeared with some butter and a little bit of sea salt. On this day, which was a couple days later, it's morning around 10:30, and I'm expecting two of my friends, and one of my friends is bringing her little adorable baby over, and I had offered to make them lunch, and one of my friends was bringing dessert, which was very thoughtful and helpful of her. And so my son, who had just had the birthday recently, he really likes the Fuji chicken apple salad from Panera, and my mother-in-law had brought a version of that as a side for his birthday dinner. And so I thought it was so delicious, and she ended up leaving some of the ingredients. So I thought, well, I'll get some lettuce and some tomato, and I'll make that for the ladies. So my husband had grilled up a bunch of marinated chicken, and it was more than we needed for that week. So I individually wrapped each chicken breast and froze it. And then yesterday, the day before this, I got it out of the oven to thaw. And then I just am chopping up some romaine lettuce. This particular head of romaine lettuce was like very dirty and covered in bugs. So it was really kind of a slow, laborious process of pulling each individual leaf from the head of lettuce and like rinsing on both sides and kind of having to use my fingers to dislodge the unwanted insects. So anyways, it was a labor of love, as cooking always is. So this is that grilled marinated chicken that I've made before. It's my grandpa's recipe. It's called Bob's chicken, and it really goes well on top of salads. So then there was some crumbled blue cheese, and then these are like sweet pecan pieces, and then dried apples. Apparently you're supposed to use Fuji apple, but that was not available locally, so I just went with what was available, and I thought it was delicious. And then we had some baguette, and then again my mother-in-law found this Panera dressing. I think she got it at Meijer. Kroger did not have it. They were out of stock or something. But I did see a recipe online where you can kind of make your own version, and I would like to try that sometime. So this is what it looked like at the end. It was very delicious. There was a lot of nice texture. There was some crunch from the pecans. The blue cheese was unctuous and creamy, and the dressing is kind of like sweet and tangy. And so it all came together really well. Here's another shot of the beautiful fish at the aquarium. And then these are some of the flowers that I grew last year from seed. And I had cut flowers really all season. You really can start seeds and have a cut flower garden that produces all summer long with just seeds, soil, and some recyclables. Give it a try.